Hello and welcome to Schellhammer TV. I am here with Dr Schellhammer himself and we're going to be discussing his theory of human development. Now, Dr Schellhammer has over 40 years in the field of psychology, psychotherapy, economics and philosophy. He is also the founder of the Schellhammer Business School in Spain, which is a British accredited school, and the Schellhammer Institute. So today we are going to be discussing, like I said, your theory of human development, which can be found in his book, Architecture of the Mind. And with this book, you can follow the whole process of human development from prenatal all the way to the end. Now, Dr. Schellhammer, anyone who knows you understands that according to your theory, everything starts prenatal. But what do you mean by that?
Yeah, to explain that, I start with the method to understand. We need to know how we can approach to understand what is going on with human development. So in meditation, hypnosis, we can go back step by step to the prenatal time. And what is really very special is that we get out information about how development happens. In other words, it starts with influences from the mother, the food of the mother, emotional state of the mother. All this influences, let's say, the development of a fetus. There is also the father, there may be other kids, there is a social life around, and all these factors is registered in the process of development. That means first we build up ourselves with emotions. That's the foundation of human life. Again, to repeat, it's with meditation we can explore this world and we get an understanding how a fetus is developing during 9 months. So the social life around a family, around a fetus, if you want, is rich, is diverse. There are maybe illnesses in the field around. There may be scarcity of anything, fights in the family, other problems that create permanent stress or periodic stress during prenatal time. And yeah, we can explore with meditation how it affects the growth of the prenatal baby.
Okay, so you're saying, whilst the fetus is developing, the whole surrounding areas of the mother has an impact on the fetus that's growing inside. So whether it's emotions, the food, noises, connection, all this can be felt by the fetus?
Yes, it goes so far as a fetus stores all information. And with certain methods like hypnosis or deep meditation, we can find out what happens prenatal with the fetus and around the life of a fetus development. So, and the most important result for me is that everything that is around of a development of a human, prenatal, is stored unconsciously.
Okay, because obviously research shows that by about 2 months into the pregnancy, the brain development of that fetus is way on its process. So from that point, the fetus is able to almost understand what's happening to him, and that will start building up his character, his personality, or just his awareness?
It's more than awareness. Certain awareness. It is the fetus participates on what's going on with the mother first and what's going on in the social life around. And this is not simply stored as an information, but it shapes the development of the mental functions. For the better, for the worse, it blocks development, it stimulates development. Some factors like care, love, talking to the fetus, music, happiness in general, that gives a lot of stimulation. I would even say this is the condition that later on a human can say, I love life.
Wow. And I do know, obviously, from some research previously conducted, when a child's being fed by the mother, things such as diabetes or other disorders relating to food can actually be developed, or a foundation laid down for those during the prenatal time. What other detrimental factors can occur during the prenatal process?
Yeah, where to start? The first, it is what I said, the social life, the emotional state of the mother. There can be depression on mother sides, there can be violence in the family in general, there can be even war around, or other traumas that not directly affect the fetus, but indirectly the fetus realizes, is concerned with what the heck is going on here around in this life. I also would say that in the very early time, a fetus registers cultural elements or religious elements. Can be that certain rituals of a religion that is stored and becomes part of the foundation of life. Can be political issues, attitudes that in the same way influences a fetus and creates foundation for the developing life. So political situations, celebrations around the society as a whole, more understanding of the culture in general. This shapes as well prenatal and this for the following life.
Okay, so if we have expecting mothers watching this, and quite often, like we're told, I'm a mother myself, as long as we eat healthy, stay calm, then we're going to give birth to a nice, healthy, secure child. Are you saying those elements alone are not enough to develop a secure baby? It's more than just eating healthy and trying to be calm.
Yeah, there are two ways how mother, father, and the environment can approach to the prenatal baby. The one way is it's coming. It's just in 9 months, a process. They don't really care, some very special. So another way is daily to talk to the fetus, to talk about life, what's going on in the family, and the fetus will react. Maybe not first, second, but third, fourth, fifth months ahead. A fetus reacts on if mother is talking, father is talking, and it's always first the voice of the mother. And a fetus reacts with the body fully. And for let's say, to express something exciting, or can even express a kind of anger that does not understand. It also should be clear that if parents never talk to the fetus, the development is quite very passive. So there is no relation built up with parents, other people around in the family, and this reduces the development of mental capacities.
Okay, because obviously, around 6-7 months, the fetus can hear pretty much everything going on around. So surely that familiarity of the mother's voice would happen naturally. But you're saying actual communication with the fetus is what builds that relationship, which allows the fetus to almost be aware that it's being born into a secure and loving environment. If the interaction isn't personal, that doesn't happen.
Right. I would say that unconscious relations to the members of a family start also prenatal. If there is quite a passive development, not daily talking with the fetus, also from the father, then the development is low, not strong. Can happen that together with, let's say, depression of a mother, illnesses in the family, or other difficult life situations, paralyze certain developments already prenatal. So there is the part that creates the powerful development by nature, but not just itself, but because parents care, talk, I love you, I'm happy you come here to us. We care for you. Look at the world here and nature. We will go for walks. Now we go with the car here and there. And the fetus is here and realizes the communication. And there is very, very serious decisions, that passive decisions, or from nature decisions. How to nurture prenatal with communication, with attitudes, this development has lifelong consequences.
Okay, so again, imagine we've got expecting mothers or new mothers even watching this, and they're thinking to themselves, okay, I wasn't aware of this. I wasn't aware that the interaction between me and my fetus was imperative for positive development, positive mental development. Is it kind of a doomed situation, or can they, through maybe the postnatal stage, almost undo some of the negative attributes that may have been developed during the prenatal?
So you're asking about after that 9 months?
Yeah, so the 9 months has been completed, the baby's here. Perhaps parents haven't been so aware of the importance of prenatal care. Is there anything they can do? Does the development continue? Can we almost rewind in time to make a more positive start? Or is it fixed? What happens prenatal, is that fixed for the rest of their life course?
Yeah, I understand. No, it's not fixed, obviously. Once the baby is here, a lot of changes are in the family life. So parents become more aware, now the baby is here, yeah? For most parents, it is also a difficult challenge, this being now here, yeah? And there's a lot of work to do. There's 24/7 care necessary, day and night, and the way parents now, postnatal, interact with that baby, that's really crucial for the future, yeah? It's also about love, about understanding, about explaining, about guidance, talking, music, and yeah, with 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, to give a lot of opportunities to learn, to explore, and to guide. That's the key. With this postnatal, obviously, you can create this, or life can create a certain balance. But if prenatal, there were traumas, real traumas from environment, let's say war, hunger, that takes a long time to correct. Okay. Yeah.
But it can be, over time, something that can be worked on to reduce the impact of maybe prenatal care or uncare, shall we say. Because obviously, not all women realise they're pregnant straight away. It could be months in. You know, are we going to sit there feeling guilty for it, or can we go, it's okay, now we know what's going on, we can work to fix that and have a strong, secure, well-developed, mentally, physically, little human being?
Yeah, I can give an example with regressions to prenatal time. I've done it with 1,000 clients during 40 years. So we go back with meditation, and we come to the early childhood, the very early childhood. And in this state, the client can talk, can tell about what is going on, like in the past. Visually seen in the meditation, this time, first year, second year, third year after prenatal time. So, and most clients reported me this emotional components from that time. Okay. So, means fights, means noise in that sense, or absence of care, absence of understanding. Also, and this is even worse, very strong family rules are stored and dominate the development of the mental functions already at that time. And as an adult, to go back with regressions, but this you shouldn't do just like that. That's a process of 1 year or more. You can see how, or everybody can learn to see how we are shaped from this time already, and we repeat.
Dr. Schellhammer, 2 or 3 times now you've mentioned the word mental functions. What do you mean by mental functions?
Yeah, there is the brain that develops from prenatal, and there are the mental functions that needs to be developed. So this is about talking, it's about information we can store, it is about learning. In total, let's say we can calculate about 22 different functions we have to build up from prenatal, postnatal, then following years. So this must be nurtured, obviously. Nurtured means guidance, means to give a lot of opportunities for explorations. And ignoring that we need to nurture leads to reduced mental capacities. And this has consequences for the rest of life.
Are these mental functions almost like our tool belt of abilities to maybe process information, understand what's going on, our instincts? What are the 22 mental functions, or the main mental functions that guide us through our life?
Yeah, okay, there's the 22, that's a lot, yeah? So it's described in my books in more details, but certainly first thing is about communication we learn. We learn to understand meaning, the meaning when mom is talking, dad is talking about certain events. We learn about what is right, what is wrong. We learn prenatal emotional situations, how to deal with. We copy patterns, attitudes from the father, from the mother, from the culture around. So, and these are all kinds of mental functions that, let's say, it grows like flowers, let's say, yeah? And if we give the right water in, everything can grow. So, and if you have a plant at home and you never give the water to the plant, what will happen? The same is with the postnatal development, yeah? Reduced development, stunted development. And I must say it's a bit very heavy about the global, let's say, status of mental functions. 3, 5, 7% of 100% are developed mental functions. All the rest, since millenniums, we have ignored or only used it in little bits. So we are at the beginning of human development, and that's the drama of today in the collective world.
And would you say by understanding the importance of prenatal time, the way we develop as human beings from awareness, through love, through care, through prioritizing the child and being aware that we need to make them into secure, high-functioning human beings, do you think we could then perhaps have a more aware society which can then almost reduce some of the chaos that we are living in today? I mean, after all, we are facing a global disaster at the moment and everything is man-made. So could we perhaps undo some of that chaos by being more aware of the importance of human development and the role we have as parents?
Sure, the drama begins with the fact that most people on this planet don't even know why they are on this planet and what for they are on this planet. Most parents, they have no idea when they create a baby what the consequences are, the consequences of the development. Summarized in one short image is copy-paste starts prenatal. For most people, most attitudes, patterns of life are in the very early childhood stored and copied, and this then shapes the entire life, but on a very low level of capacities, and this should change globally.
So those parents or expecting parents or wanting to be parents. Those out there who think to themselves, let's have a baby, it's going to make everything better. Maybe there's a problem in the relationship, in the family. Obviously, some cultures depend on having children for care later on in their life, say retirement age and forwards. Do you think these are maybe some of the reasons to why we have a global society that isn't necessarily working in a successful way? Do you think these parents need to stop and go, okay, what is the reason for our wanting to have a child, and how is it going to have a global effect rather than just immediate effects?
Yeah, during decades of explorations, I made notes about what are the motives that the people want a baby. And I found 30 motives. They are all egocentric motives to have a baby. And this will never solve anything on the planet, because it's copy-paste.
Just increase the population,
yeah.
Which brings us more problems.
Yes, I would say that. But there are two other very strong attitudes that I would say allows it to enter into such a project. Because once we create the baby is here for a life. Yeah. So, and if we start with poor conditions, this will shape the life of a human. Yeah. So it's about mental capacities that parents can give to the prenatal, postnatal baby, to the small kids and so on. It is about the understanding parents have about the meaning of life, that is developing the potentials, using potentials to understand what we are. Includes that parents should start first with self-knowledge first. So if parents have heavy traumas or just very poor understanding of humans, they reproduce it, and that's why we have 80% of the global population. They are on lowest level of development. They can never get out of the mess, and that's not correct. So we should know before we start.
It's interesting you say about self-knowledge or personal development. Obviously in the workspace we hear it all the time. Personal development's going to make you more successful, maybe better at your job, but actually that personal development needs to begin at the start, not necessarily when we're already formed adults. And perhaps, like you say, with the parents themselves, so that change happens at the beginning.
Yes, right.
And guys, if you're interested in what Dr. Schellhammer means by personal development, whether it's before you have your child or once the child's here, or even in the adult life, put your comments down below and we will make a video on that. Dr. Schellhammer, thank you.
Yeah, and you're welcome.
Next time. Hello and welcome back to Schellhammer TV. Once again, I am with Dr. Schellhammer himself, and we are going to be discussing human development. Now, during our last video, we went into great detail in the importance of prenatal care. We touched slightly on postnatal care, but more around environmental factors. Today, we are going to be looking at the importance of postnatal care and early childhood development. This can be followed with Dr. Schellhammer's book, Architecture of the Mind. Dr. Schellhammer, as we know, brain development starts prenatal, and during those first few years, the brain development is rapid. What external factors can influence the child's brain development?
Yeah, the brain's development that starts prenatal and becomes a new context once the baby is here. So there is a family, let's say, they all participate on this baby here, and there is a lot of care in the way prenatal wasn't topic. So, first of all, positive communication, care in all details. It starts quite with a lot of stress. It means every few hours, day or night, the baby has certain needs or wants or reactions. So there is, let's say, a standard family. There is a father, there is the mother, there may be already another child or two. And so the social life within the family changes completely. So, each member of the family will create a certain connection with this baby. Each one has a different one. Yeah? Can be that there is already a small kid, 4, 5, 6 years old, and rejects that there is another baby, for example. On the other hand, the relationship between man and woman changes fundamentally postnatal. So it is not just about the development of the baby, but also what is the development of this couple, woman and the man together. How do they deal together with all the needs and wants and difficulties and problems that start? So I would say, first of all, we do not need to talk about the baby, we need to talk about the parents. So, are they prepared? Are they ready to learn what is going on in the development of this baby? Do they discuss together the needs and wants around the baby, and with, in case, for example, there is another kid? A certain new balance must be created consciously with communication, with sharing anger, sharing frustration, sharing understanding, or to get together the right understanding what has to be done. Maybe one partner wants to go to work, the other partner needs to go to work as well, who looks after the baby, and every 4, 6 hours, including at night, all the time, the mother, and sometimes or often should also be the father, be ready to care for the situation that is given. Yeah.
Because also during these early stages, the relationship or the dynamics between the parents are ultimately going to change. I think we take for granted that babies come along and life continues, but that isn't the case, is it? So are you saying the parents need to really be aware of what those possible changes are going to be and how they can manage those around the child as well?
The first changes happens with the man and with the woman. If we do not now include another child already here, they need new attitudes.
Okay.
They need most probably a new rhythm of life around the baby. They have to change their needs, their wants, because in the center is always this baby with needs and wants. So, and could be that young generation, they're not able to manage this new situation. They cannot balance or rebalance their life. So there's a lot of frustration around. Yeah.
Because priorities change as well. Before a baby, it's just the two adults, they're each other's priority, they can meet all their needs, whether they're, physical, emotional, sexual, and then all of a sudden a baby comes along and that partner's no longer the number one or the priority because their dependent is 24/7 dependent. And do you think new parents are ready for that?
I would say most parents are not ready for that. They're not even ready for their own development, to manage their own inner life. They are probably not even ready to manage the relationship in a balanced way. So it becomes quite complicated. The process, 9 months and etc., what we discussed last time. Now here, it's more complicated. It's not just about the baby. It's about the parents. Are they somehow mature?
Yeah.
Do they know each other? Isn't it a fact that most young people, they don't understand themselves? So how can they understand the partner if they don't understand themselves? Yeah. And this then with the baby together complicates the whole emotional situation and management situation of a young family.
So Dr. Schellhammer, can you please tell us what areas during that first year of having the baby there should parents focus on? I mean, obviously at this stage, babies generally just want feeding, they cry, they do the other bits. Is it important for parents to understand how to respond to given actions of their baby, or is it just something they can learn and pick up as they go along?
Yeah, parents must learn to understand the reaction, the behavior of the baby. They must learn to understand that certain expressions needs to deal with.
Yeah.
Baby can cry, baby wants this or that, moves around, seems to be nervous. So parents must learn to understand the language of the baby. And this requires a lot of patience.
Yes.
It's difficult. It's indeed often stressful because the baby doesn't stop crying, for example. Yeah. So the way parents react, or the mother or the father reacts in such a situation, is crucial. If parents react increasingly with frustration, then the baby is irritated, feels rejected, and this has then consequences in the development of the baby. So obviously after 1 year, 2 years, life with the baby changes a bit. The baby can start walking, wants to play around a lot. But even before, even after a few months, it is important that the mother and the father as well, they talk to this baby, half year here on the planet in that sense, postnatal. So a lot of communication is necessary, although positive one obviously, and in the right words, adult words, just infantile ways of this is not the way to talk to a baby. No, there can be nice words, nice expressions, can be a little bit singing around to give to the baby the feeling, I am protected. Mom protects me, dad protects me. That is really fundamental in the first 2-3 years.
It's interesting you say they shouldn't use the baby talk, because we all do it. We all see a baby and we just go gooey and make silly noises, kind of give back to them what they give to us. Does that really impact on their development?
In the very early stage, probably not.
Okay.
But later on, with 2 years or 3 years, I would say this is not an appropriate language.
I suppose they're not learning a vocabulary unless it's being shown to them.
But a baby listens to the tone from mom or dad. If mom or dad or another person is talking to the baby cannot really react, but moves probably, and or is focused on something is going on. Yeah. So the baby learns the meaning from mother and father and others, and the other way around, parents need to learn to understand the meaning of the baby's movement, the baby's noise and reaction and crying and so on. Yeah? To ignore the concentrated development of everyday life with the baby creates damages.
What type of damages? For example, if a parent believes leaving their baby to cry rather than responding straight away is going to help them understand that they can't have everything they want straight away, or not realizing the importance of a routine for that child to follow. Can these sort of things hinder the development of a child?
Yes, I would say yes. We spoke about last time about the prenatal situations, that the fetus reacts on what emotionally is going on around. So postnatal, the baby feels rejection. The baby feels that's not accepted, ignored, and especially the first year, a good rhythm that the baby feels every 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever, etc. This gives a feeling of protection, and they love me, they accept me. They need to be accepted.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say from prenatal meditations with clients, the baby feels if there is love, if they are protected or ignored. So with meditation, adults can go back to that time and can find out the situation. Love is not just a verbal matter, it's an energetic matter.
Yeah.
So it fills a room, obviously, including for the baby, or the anger is in the air, bloody hell, this baby can't stop crying, for example. So we are all humans on the one side, but on the other side, we need to be adults, to learn to be adults in that situation, because we, the parents of a baby, we are responsible for the development, and this can have consequences for the rest of the life.
Now, Dr. Schellhammer, you have mentioned previously that obviously giving a good education or awareness to a child is incredibly important. Now, most children will go into nursery at just a few years old. What's the importance of the right type of education on the development of a young child?
What is a young child age? You mean?
Early years, so 2, 3, 4. By 4 in most European countries, children are going into school. So what's the importance of those early years and having an education, or the government structured education?
I think it starts with building up confidence.
Okay.
With building up trust and the feeling of being cared, protected, guided. This includes, obviously, also some freedom, that there may be on the floor running around somehow, can explore the world. Must be supported to explore, must be supported to deal with all kinds of tools, whatever, toys, and must have an area to develop, to explore things, everything, but absolutely everything. They want to feel what it is, they want to try to do something with it, and parents must support this environment and protect it and giving in permanently new ideas. In general, year 1, year 2, if I remember right, a baby wants every 2 minutes something else. Yeah. And so parents can react in different ways. But most important is supporting this world of exploration and giving a feeling of it's right what you do, if it's right that it's difficult, I help you to solve this and that with a toy. This gives inner strength.
So education isn't just what kids get when they go to school. Education is their everyday experience. And you're saying this everyday experience needs to be supported, it needs to be guided, it needs to be nurtured, so a baby can learn through every single experience. It's not just a case of, oh, the baby's here, oh, now the baby's at school age, it can go to school and start learning. The learning starts from day one.
Yeah, there is a very high responsibility for the parents. Yeah, when mom goes for shopping, then the 2 years old or 3 years old wants to take this, wants to take that. Yeah, the world becomes important for the baby, the very young kid. Yeah. And they must learn that they cannot just have everything they see. The same parents must learn the same as well.
But aren't they just copying their parents? My 3-year-old does it. We go through the supermarket and She just wants to grab everything and fill the trolley, because probably in her eyes, that's exactly what I'm doing. It's like a game.
Yes, it is. It is more. As far as I know, nowadays, every 2, 3, 4-year-old kid has a mobile phone, and can connect with the world.
Yeah.
And they connect also with, I would say, with words they shouldn't be connected. So we have today the early childhood influences from the mass media, via television, via mobile, via etc., what else it may be. Countless information that is attracting people, the babies, the parents as well. So, should mom always give chocolate? Should mom allow to have with the mobile phone to explore the world?
YouTube Kids, when the parents are busy.
For example,
yeah.
I think parents, they have an endless responsibility to check a bit what is right. So, because the social influences from the external world, and I include here with the brainwashing parents, brainwashing societies, all this is so strong that in the end, parents have no say, they give up, and that's wrong. Yeah. That's completely wrong. So this guidance must become part of life, including following years.
Yeah. So for many parents, obviously watching this, you can be thinking, oh, I just give my kid the device, they're learning something, it's okay. Oh, I don't mind them chucking everything in the trolley when we walk around. I can just get rid of it before I pay. But actually what you're saying is these parents need to be aware that all their actions have a consequence, and everything they do is teaching their child. So rather than just giving in and then dealing with it at the end, they should be aware that every time they say something, every time they allow something, they are basically teaching their child a new behavior.
It comes into my mind a thought from a very long time ago. I was asked from people, how can I do it right?
Yeah.
And I remember I said, do it right with yourself. What you do with yourself is kind of teaching of the kids from the parents. So first, if parents are not able to manage their inner development, to manage the challenges of everyday life with a small kid and baby, then there will be a lot of failure, a lot of problems. And parents give up, and the kids, the small kids, they grow somehow. Yeah. With external influences nobody can control. So it is of highest importance that parents must know from prenatal to postnatal and the following years they are responsible to educate the right way, to show the world, to teach the world to the very small in a very supportive, understanding way. And I guess a lot of parents that are unable.
Well, we're just so busy with life sometimes, work, family members, things that are going on around us. And sometimes it's just a case of getting through every day, but that's not enough. What you're saying is we need to see it as an education every single day.
Yes, it is. Self-education every day, education of everything. Parents must learn the 100,000 goods they could buy but can't. Yeah. And the first 3, 4, 5, 6 years until kids come to school is a fully responsibility of the parents. And it has consequences, long-term consequences. Okay. This parents must know.
And are there other factors that we need to be aware of? For example, environmental factors surrounding us when a child is born. Is there anything that influences the brain development of the child?
This is a very, very difficult topic to talk about. Scientists found out that already prenatal fetus, they have up to 27, 28 different toxins in their brain development. I found scientific reports, they already reports about 30, 40 different toxins in the brain development of the babies and small kids. And I found out other international knowledge that humans have 200 toxins already in their body. So we are globally exposed, highly exposed to contamination. So this is another topic that we should not ignore if we want a future for the very young generation.
And will those toxins influence brain development on a
Yes,
daily
obviously,
level?
strongly. They paralyze, they reduce mental capacities, they including create specific problems with the body, with the organ functions. And we know clearly to give an example, that mining, wherever mining, that in a radius of 30, 40, 50 kilometers, contamination from the mining damages the health of the workers there, and they have a very short life.
Thank you, Dr. Schellhammer. Now, we've gone through our prenatal, postnatal and early childhood. In our next video, we'll be going that step further and looking at the adolescence development and ways we can manage that time to bring a more secure human being. Again, any questions, drop your comments below and we will answer them the best way we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome back to Schellhammer TV. Again, I'm here with Dr. Schellhammer himself. Now, during our last discussion, we focused mainly on the development of early childhood years. If you missed that, you can check on our webpage and catch up. We also discussed the prenatal development, which can also be found on our webpage. Now, today, Dr. Schellhammer, I want us to kind of go into something you mentioned during our last discussion, which was the mental functions we develop during prenatal time and how they continue to develop, obviously, throughout the years. I think a good place to start is looking at from the age of 3 to 6, as that's where we kind of stopped in our last interview. What are the mental functions that we develop during those early years that kind of come into play during those early years as a child?
Yeah, to start with the most important function, that is, we all know it, it's about perception, for example. It is about learning. It is about interpretation. What is going around is about understanding the environment. These are basic functions, but we can say these are the tools to make our life. But we have many more functions. For example, body reactions. For example, our dreams. We have at night, there are also mental functions. Then the communication, the way we talk, or languages, these are mental functions, or in other context I could say these are the tools we need to make a life. Because without mental functions, we cannot function.
Okay, so when we say mental functions, we are really discussing cognitive development and how enhanced areas can obviously allow us to function in a more efficient way, or if their functions aren't developed, in a less able way. Is that correct?
Yeah, there is a basic way of perception, obviously. So what people see around, what is the reality, but this is often not really the important reality. The reality is behind. So perception must include to look what is behind. Or we must have questions. I see something and I have questions. If I do not have questions, then I cannot really catch what is around, what I perceive around me. So from this perception, body reactions we have, they tell us we are unwell, for example. They tell us about the pain we have. They tell us about emotional feelings. I'm happy or I'm angry. So all these are expressions of mental functions, and certainly with the age 5, 6, the very young should learn to understand and to interpret what is going on around the world using mental functions.
Okay, do they naturally gain these mental functions, or is it the responsibility of the social environment and parents to nurture and enable them to understand how to develop these?
Yes, we need to nurture, obviously, or we have in our biological development a kind of a software. Yeah?
Okay.
This software is there, allows thousands of options, but we need to learn to deal with this software. So it means we need to learn to have questions. We need to learn to find answers for questions. We need to learn to see why this happens or that happens, or what are consequences of certain behavior, certain ways of talking, and this doesn't just happen like that. This is education. This is, they must be allowed to ask questions, allowed to look behind the surface of realities. They must be allowed to question television content, for example, or mom says, you are not allowed to look this, you are not allowed to have a mobile phone now, and you cannot look this or that. Means a small kid wants answers. Why this not and only that?
So that because I say so attitude is not going to help with their development. It should always be yes and no and the reasons behind it, so they can build up that knowledge of understanding there's always something beyond what they see, and I suppose that would help with their perceptive development. Would you agree?
Yes. In the past, 30 years, 50 years, or 80 years ago, 100 years ago, the father said, that's fact and basta. We don't talk, we don't discuss. Shut up your mouth, for example. That was education. This can't work today.
No.
So today, the very young generation, they have lost the rules. Because there's so many information every day they got in, they cannot identify the value of what they see, of what is allowed to do or not, and rules with other people, with other kids, with parents, etc. So they must learn that. And this learning process requires from parents the corresponding support and always explaining because of this, because of that. And yes, you can do that and look here and look behind, for example. In the modern society, this kind of perception is not very active. Now, people see just something, but not the reality behind. They don't have the questions.
Do you think that's because we kind of live in almost like a two-click society? Anything we want to know or learn is literally just 2 clicks away, and it stops us from maybe thinking for ourselves in a sense, and almost assume that we can get anything and everything from our device or the TV or anything around us other than our own ability to think about something.
Yeah. If you go with a kid in a supermarket or in a big commercial center, the kids 4, 5, 6 years old or 10 years old, they see this, they see hundreds of things, and they cannot understand that they cannot have it.
No.
Yeah? So they will be confused. They back home, they're frustrated. Yeah? So to balance this challenge for the very young, there is a need to talk about everything, why you can't have this, why you can't have that, and this damages into that direction, or this has an effect that is not recommended, etc., etc. Yeah. So this is building up a human by guidance, but it requires that parents know how to do it with their kids.
Okay, so we've looked at perception. Now, according to yourself, Dr. Schellhammer, there's 22 mental functions, and they can all be found in his book, Architecture of the Mind. Fantastic book, and it's lovely to actually understand not just the developmental stages, but the importance at different ages and what's happening. So all that can be found in your book. Now, when we think about your mental functions, obviously perception is incredibly important and is happening early on. Having read the book myself, I found that you were discussing a little bit about decision making and building up knowledge and having these as part of our mental functions. When is this happening and how so?
Yeah, the first 4 or 5 years, I would say, is exploration, guided explorations. And then with the year 6 up to 8, 9, the very young must learn to take decisions. It's always the same. They want 2 things, but can only have one of both. Yeah. So they have to take a decision. So they need to learn to find the right decision with this age. So with schooling in the school, year 1, 2, they can ask, why do I have to learn? Why do I have to learn this and that? I want to rather do this or that. So there are certain rules, there are certain activities, mental activities, necessary to develop mental functions in the context of school, in the context of life, in the context of peer groups.
So Dr. Schellhammer, we've touched on a few of the mental functions for those early years. I would like us to jump to the early adolescence years, as so much is going on through that stage. Now, according to the United Nations, adolescence is between the age of 10 and 18, but the early adolescence is between the ages of 10 and 14 years, and that's where we're going to focus on next. Now, obviously, during this stage, a lot is going on for your child. They're understanding their place in the world a little bit more, they're questioning themselves, they have high emotional roller coaster acts, if you like. And one thing that starts to become a little clearer to them is obviously love, the ability to love and to be loved. Now, according to your book, this is one of the mental functions. What's the importance of this mental function?
Love is about, first, understanding reality. Secondly, the value of reality. So they're very young, they realize what they can get or not, and how they have to treat everything that is around them in life. So love has to do with respect. Respect to get, respect towards others, and love also is an expression of love life. Means
and yourself.
And yourself.
Okay.
Yeah. So the consequence is that already, I would say with the age 8, 7, 8, the very young can and should learn to become responsible, step by step responsible for what they get, for what they want, and how they behave, how they talk, and to contribute in a family life, for example, in a way that everybody is in a development, always in a development, and everybody in the family needs respect, or to give respect and to receive respect. That includes certain rules.
And would that almost tie into one of your other mental functions, which is something you describe as emotional intelligence? Would that be connected to understanding how to love yourself, others, the environment, how to conduct yourself, to always be in that respectful manner? Or is it something different?
Yeah, there's a lot in play around this emotional intelligence. Certainly, one thing is each human has a certain register of feelings, of very positive, very negative. Our body gives us messages about our health, about the way we think, about our behavior, and we need to learn to understand the message from our let's say, body reactions. That seems to be important in the context of love, because without love, both cannot operate. So love is about responsibility, what we do, and love is also about the development of what we get. And for this, we must become responsible. Parents have to teach them, to train them for such a development.
That makes sense. I suppose we learn from what's being modelled around us, so without the correct support and encouragement, those mental functions are not going to develop as well as they could. Another area I was really interested in when reading your book is how you talk about spiritual intelligence, visualization, meditation. These are ways of enhancing mental functions, or are they a mental function within themselves?
I would say first, independent functions.
Okay.
So we all dreams. We have dreams every night. We can remember or not. There are certain differences from culture or people, etc. It's very difficult to talk about dreams because on the one side there's a magic interpretation in most books about, and this doesn't really help. But dreams always have a message, and we can learn to understand this language. That is one thing. Secondly, meditation. We can feel how our body reacts in many ways, in many situations, and this is always an information. We can ignore this information. We are used to ignore information from our body, and the world is used to ignore dreams. So we can close our eyes, sitting at home somewhere, and we can visualize what we think. We can visualize what happened before. We can visualize our own behavior in certain contexts of life, about other people, for other people, etc. Meditation has to do with energy from the body. Has to do with using this tool, these mental functions, to balance inner life. We all have an inner life. Yeah, and there's a lot of chaos. And we can all learn, or the very young already can learn to balance, to meditate with music, 5 minutes, 2 minutes. And anyway, adults should do this weekly or monthly. Yeah.
And actually, I know with meditation, it's very popular at the moment, and even suggested as a really positive form of self-help, a form of empowerment. So obviously it's something that should really be focused on more in the early years, and have it as, like you say, a mental function that can be used throughout the years to keep that internal balance. Would you agree?
Yes, I would even say that this function helps us to balance the entire body, the entire mind. We can be angry, and to reduce this anger, for example, we feel depressed and we can find our inner center. We can learn with meditation to become strong inside. We can even go with meditation back into the past. It's not a kind of therapy, it's just self-healing or self-understanding. So you can sit somewhere and why I'm sad, why I'm angry, for example. And with visualization, for example, we get answers. You have questions in life, always dreams give an answer. Try that way, try this way. This was not really good what you have done here or there. Dreams are the engine for spiritual development, for human development in general. So if we take away love, if we take away care, if we take away this mental function called, let's say, the dream functions, if we take away the visualization as a capacity or a mental function, what remains? Archaic humans. Yeah. And that is what we have since 20,000 years, and not much changed since then.
So by gaining an awareness of all these different functions, we can actually understand how it makes a more secure, fulfilled human being. And perhaps if more of us were doing it, we would have maybe a more organised society as well. So Dr. Schellhammer, obviously during this discussion we've talked about several of the mental functions. What I want to know is, and I'm sure there's viewers out there as well, if we go through stages in our life and we haven't had this awareness that we need to focus on one function or another to become more aware as a human being, is there a way of developing them later on, maybe in your late teens or your adult years, or are we just going to be functional as human beings?
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
There are thousands of books on the market, good books, from other books we don't want to talk. Everybody must learn, and this should never end during life. We have mental functions and a body that wants from us, requires from us to learn endless. Every day, every week, every year, from the very young to the very old. The very young, they don't want to learn. There is so many adults, if not billions, to talk about, they don't want to learn.
No, yeah.
So they stop quite early with going to school and etc. And I think they know the word, they know a lot, but they know nothing. So there's one principle. We need to nurture our body, our mind, our mental potentials. We need to nurture with knowledge, the right knowledge, to understand ourselves, to understand the world, to understand people, to understand the mistakes on this planet. And there are a lot of mistakes on this planet. And this helps us to become complete, to become a very mature person, to become rich in the character, in the expressions, and that is a contribution to the world. Anything else is never a contribution.
And I suppose when we think about that and understanding our mistakes, for example, if we understand them, is that the first stage of moving forward in a more successful direction? If we understand the mistakes, then maybe we can change them.
In the general picture said, looking back 3,000 years or 5,000 years, governance didn't change. They didn't learn anything up to today. And it's the same with humans. Since thousands of years up to today, only very few people really learned for changes. So first, people need to learn to see what is going wrong, and they need to become co-responsible. They cannot just delegate to governance, to the politics, to the religion, to the economy, etc. All solutions. All humans need to contribute by learning, studying, endless studying. Isn't it also important in a relationship, between man and woman? They need mutually, daily, weekly, monthly, to learn, because we all change with the age. We change with every year. We change with life conditions, and we must learn. And learning is the principle of human life. Not learning is a lost life.
Yeah. Thank you. And actually you touched on a really interesting topic there about relationships. If you're interested in understanding the psychology of relationships or the ways of managing a relationship in a more positive way, you can write a comment below and we can have a discussion on that. And the same with meditation, visualization and dream theories. If this is an area you're interested in, leave Dr. Schellhammer a comment and we can give an in-depth discussion on that topic as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome back to Schellhammer TV. Again, I'm here with Dr. Schellhammer, and today we're going to be having our fourth and final discussion on his theory of human development. Now, if you've missed our previous videos, we discussed prenatal care, postnatal care, early childhood years, and the influence of mental functions on human development. Now, today we're going to be discussing epigenetics. And like I say, this is our fourth and final one. All our videos can be found on Schellhammer TV. You can also follow our conversation with Dr. Schellhammer's book, Architecture of the Mind. Everything is in here with great detail and you can follow the process. So, epigenetics, Dr. Schellhammer. The epigenetic science explores how previous generations can influence the generations to come, correct?
Yeah.
Now, this can be from prenatal time, postnatal and forward. Can you give us a little more detail about what the epigenetics influence is?
Yes, the basic information about epigenetics is that we inherit from previous generations certain life pattern.
Okay.
So this can be stress factors from 50 years, 100 years, 200 years ago. Can be certain wars, especially wars. They, over several generations, the people inherit the traumas, certain patterns of fear. In that context, obviously also scarcities. This always affects entire generations and including towards the future. It is said that up to 14 generations there is a risk that we inherit traumatic situations or patterns of life. Means political theater mess. Quite strong is, I would say, the element of higher risks. Epigenetics have found out that certain people from certain areas easier inherit the critical elements from the history. Means that with starting our life here, we are connected with the past somehow. It's too difficult to explore these details. It goes into biology, it goes into energetic matters, but the fact is relatively clear that previous generations transfer to the next generation entire life experiences.
Okay, and I know you touched slightly on it's relating to biology, and I suppose what you're saying is we have things stored in our DNA which then influence us. Are these biological factors or are they environmental factors as well that influence our genetic makeup?
It is certainly, first of all, seen from the science, it is a biological topic.
Okay.
But on the other hand, they found out that entire psychological patterns are inherited. Patterns of mental patterns, for example, lower, medium or higher level of education, certain ways of living, the culture as a whole creates, covers an entire society. Mm-hmm. And it's not that a new generation, a newborn baby, starts with zero. No. Somehow, each human inherits such elements from these past patterns. Epigenetics focuses mainly on illnesses, obviously, and on the risk factor to inherit previous illnesses.
So things like traumas are carried through. I know there was studies done in the mid-60s around the children from the survivors of the Holocaust, and they carried that trauma through. Right. So that's what you're saying. We have previous generations that would have gone through traumatic experiences, but it's almost like the memory or the aftermath of that is carried on through the future generations.
Yeah, right.
Is there anything that can be done to say, okay, I understand that maybe I have this trauma within me. What can be done to rectify it or to prevent it being passed on again and again?
Yeah, I can start connecting 100 years ago, psychology 100 years ago, with Sigmund Freud, Carl Gustav Jung, and there are 100 more pioneers from the first decades, last century. They found out that we inherit in the present life through our experiences certain patterns. Can be patterns of punishment, can be fear in a society, can be love stories, obviously, that creates traumas, also violence, and humans build up from prenatal, postnatal, and then during life such patterns. This is in general called about unconscious complexes.
Okay.
So we inherit or we create ourselves certain patterns, we suppress these patterns, and then we depend on the unconscious codex, what we learned before about that. So this, in that sense, is how psychology starts exploring our worlds, postnatal. A factor here is to mention that we can indeed learn to understand our complexes, or people having complexes. So either they explore to understand it, or they live with it. So psychotherapy, the main work of psychotherapists, is first to understand the biography of a client, and then to find out, let's say, specific experiences that had a traumatic effect. Traumatic effects always force the people, the individual, to repeat the unconscious complexes. So one important aim is, in this context, to dissolve unconscious complexes. So this goes along with epigenetics somehow, although epigenetics is not psychotherapy.
But there's a link between them. So by understanding those traumas, unpacking them and making peace with them, one, it's going to sit better with you, but at the same time, it's not going to be a trauma that's passed through to the next generation. So it's an effective way of working, I suppose, with epigenetics to improve the situation or the state of mankind if everyone went through the process of psychoanalysis and understanding where their traumas come from.
Yeah, first I said we inherit from previous generations. Now I can say in our generation we not only create our own unconscious complexes through life experiences, but we transfer our experiences to the next generation. So the future generations inherit our complexes, and we inherit the previous entire history from the past.
Now, is epigenetics all doom and gloom? Because we've talked about obviously trauma and the effects of war and maybe different forms of abuse that can surround us. Is there anything positive that we can discuss when it comes to epigenetics and the influences on generations?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay,
obviously, there is not only the critical history or the burden we have from the past. It depends on the one side, let's say from the parents, from the early childhood. It depends how father and mother and the entire family deals with a new baby as part of the family. Depends on education, obviously. The way the young generation or the new generation creates a positive environment, a constructive communication, learning attitudes, sharing experiences, including a certain kind of happiness that forms part of life. So it's about education. So those who don't get such education, that goes up to 18, 20 years, then it continues in kind of a family, that patterns of joy of life, patterns of accepting being on this planet, this creates hope, This creates constructive communication, trust between the members of a family, with neighbors, with other people. So the more the entire society has a balanced way of human development, everybody gets a certain benefit. If this is not given from the governance, from an entire state, then at least people, families, social groups, they can and must create their own constructive development for the future.
So you're saying with epigenetics, it's not just an individual journey. We can have a collective change or influence.
Yes, indeed. It's not about individualism.
Okay.
It's a bit a problem today around the globe, this kind of individualism. Everybody is on his own. And the networks of social life today is quite very different from 50 years ago. And the quality of inner life is missed today. So here we have, on the one side, flourishing options to create new life, to be creative, to be critical in discussions, to try to solve certain problems in a community. So it begins with the family. It goes then with what is around socially. It goes up to other communities around locally or in a certain area, including an entire state has a spirit, a constructive spirit. So this world, positive world, will be inherited in the future from the following generations, if they continue this. Yeah. So in that sense, we are social humans. We are built up socially. We are built up from a big environment. And on the dark side, I would say that a governance in general or political problems that are all around wars or risk of wars, this paralyzes the constructive collective development.
Let me ask you, Dr. Schellhammer, now we may have people watching this video going, okay, this is starting to make sense, or there may be people at home going, my child's having problems, my therapist has said that we're suffering with a transgenerational trauma. My children are traumatized from what's happened to me or their grandparents. What advice can you give, or what sort of strategies, practical strategies, can someone watching this that wants to try and resolve an issue around such a trauma, what steps could they start with just to start unpacking the issue to ensure that this isn't continued through the future generations of their family?
Yeah, where to start is a lot to say about. First point is each human is responsible for his own life. Yeah. Each human must learn to understand inner life. And the character, and to develop the personality, to shape a personal identity. So this is on an individual level. So should be in a bigger collective, that an entire collective is in a kind of a journey of finding the personal concept for the future, finding the dynamics of development, and including talents and interests to go forward. So it has also to do with love. It has to do with understanding other people around. It has to do with respect, and always with developing. Development is the core of everything.
So Dr. Schellhammer, you're saying if there is a family that's maybe having to deal with some trauma from previous generations, through communicating, discussing the issues, being loving, accepting and honest, but really understanding the effects it has without judgments, this is the beginning steps to allowing someone to overcome the effects from that trauma. And then you're saying with further self-development, interests, and like you say, always involving education to make yourself more fulfilled, you can take those extra steps to overcoming those traumas, and as an effect it's not going to be passed down to the next generation. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I want to start with an example.
Yeah.
In the past, in certain areas around the globe, not everywhere, people were used to consult psychotherapists, for example, to solve a certain problem.
Yeah.
So, and then they worked probably for a year or two, depending on the traumas, on the unconscious complexes.
So it's not overnight, it's a process.
This is a process that, depending on the circumstances, depending on age also, and interest, it takes a certain time to work out the issues. Nowadays, if people have a depression or another certain problem, can't sleep at night, they go to the psychotherapist. After 20 minutes, they have a little paper, they go then to the pharmacy, and it doesn't help. It doesn't change anything.
It's numbing the pain rather than resolving.
Yeah. So the conclusion is we are forced to learn. We are forced to find the knowledge about ourselves, to understand ourselves. We are forced to become responsible for our state in general, for our mind, for the way we think, and we need to learn. We need to learn every day. We need to learn every year, and with the 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, still I would say you need to learn, and this is a way of living. There are thousands of books. People can choose. Not all books are the right ones. And to acquire knowledge, then to learn to meditate, to learn to understand the dreams, the language of dreams. And so the positive development requires catharsis about the past and requires learning continuously to discover the inner power for life, what people like to do, the way they want to live, so they become responsible for all this. In other words, that is often said about love is the core of everything. Half it's right. Half love doesn't fall from the sky. It's a result of learning. It's a result of understanding ourselves and other people, and responsibility for society as well. Today, we have delegated all the global problems to the governors. The message, obviously, we have on the planet means we all need to become responsible for the collective situation as well. So that's our journey of life.
Thank you. Now, like I said previously, this is our fourth and final discussion on your theory of human development. Can you just give our viewers out there a basic summary on your theory or principle of positive human development, just to finish it nicely?
First of all, is to be on this planet is a great event. We can learn so much. People must learn to love life and to develop what they get into their life. So this leads then to higher knowledge about inner life, about understanding of the big problems around the globe, understanding the partner, their own kids, understanding, including politics, or to get a better understanding what is the deep truth about our being on this planet. Critical is that most people on this planet have no idea about why they are here. Although, on the positive side said, it's all inside. And that's the positive message. Everything is to find from inside.
Thank you. Thank you very much.